How can I be okay with the fact that so many people I love will go to hell? Hello, I'm 19, and I've been raised Southern Baptist my whole life. Since I was about 16, I started feeling further from God. I just don't understand it at all. Why put billions of conscious lives on this planet, and then damn 70% of them to hell? And I know the free will argument, and I don't really get that either. I get about 70 years of living for the first time. I've never lived before. And that's going to decide how I spend the rest of eternity? I want to trust God, but I feel like I can't. Okay, so this is a great point. Let's switch to this screen here so you can see it at the same time as I talk. This is a young person who has been doubting things because they are unclear. So it makes sense. God loved the world, so Jesus died on a cross. So whoever believes in him will get to go to heaven. But that's not really a super practical method of getting people to heaven. Now, is it? Because most people don't really know anything about Jesus. And if they do know anything about Jesus, it's certainly not sufficient to place their soul in his care. Take, for example, probably the average person in Japan. They might have access to learning about Christianity. Technically, they could read the Bible in Japanese if they wanted to. But why would they if they haven't been shown sufficiently that it's true? So this is not a bad question at all. And someone actually pointed out, I think it was this person here. Something else to keep in mind. If it is black and white in that you have to believe in Jesus to be saved, it is a system based on privilege rather than equity and equality. Not everyone has the same opportunity to be saved, since where you were born is the number one factor in what saves somebody. Okay, that's a great point. If it is entirely based on your own personal belief in Jesus, and the majority of people are never given a good reason to believe in Jesus, then how can that possibly be a fair system? How can God possibly be all good? Well, the Catholic view on this is essentially that God offers his saving grace to everyone in some way or another. There is also this idea of invincible ignorance, where if someone earnestly seeks God and earnestly seeks the absolute goodness that he is, and would accept Jesus if they had the opportunity to know and understand him, then we have every reason to believe that God will show them mercy, despite the fact that they did not live exactly as they should have. So despite the fact that they did not explicitly believe in Jesus, they implicitly believed in Jesus based on the posture of their heart and based on what they would believe if they had the opportunity. So it's not so simple as everyone in Asia who isn't a Christian is going to hell. It is more like people who have the opportunity to believe in Jesus are much better off, obviously, because you know what's being asked of you. You know what the rules to the game are. And it's, of course, not very generous of me to call it a game, but that's just a metaphor, a metaphorical way of putting it. You know what the rules to the game are. You know what Jesus wants from you. You know that he wants belief, he wants faith, and he wants obedience to him and the Father. So we have a much better chance of getting to heaven. We also have a more direct line of grace from Christ by having a personal relationship with him. But that doesn't mean that Jesus, God, is going to be just tossing everybody else directly into hell. Now, it is true, of course, the only way to the Father is through the Son. But that does not mean that the Son will not intercede on people's behalves who never had an opportunity to know him fully. So the answer to this question is we don't know exactly what happens to those people who are not reached. But we do have a good reason to believe that Christ, who is infinite in mercy and it's hard to express just how infinite that is. But one way I've heard it put is as though by your sin, a single drop of blood was spilled into the ocean that is Christ's mercy. So if Christ is all merciful like that, then we have every reason to trust that no one will go to hell unjustly. Now, then there's this whole question of whether hell is just at all to begin with. And that is also a good question. Now, I'm going to be doing a much more in-depth video on that with references and resources and sources pretty soon. So I'm not going to get too deep into that right now, but I will touch on it briefly. The basic idea is hell should not be viewed as God or the devil standing outside of you and torturing you because you were not good enough while you were alive, and you wish that he would stop and that you wouldn't be where you were and that you would be in heaven with Jesus. That is not the way that we should view this, because it's not really the way that the Bible communicates who God is and what hell is supposed to be. Hell is supposed to be an absence from God. God is all good, and so an absence from all that is good is necessarily pretty damn bad. So, does this mean that there is no active torture in hell? Does that mean it's something like a void where you're just conscious? That's unclear. If it is a void, it's not like being in a dark room kind of void. It's like being in a maximally unpleasant sensory deprivation chamber. So a sensory deprivation chamber isn't so bad because you feel sort of your body's the temperature it's supposed to be, but it's dark and you don't hear anything. And you don't really feel much aside from your body's own temperature. In hell, it would be more like it's like maximally cold, but you're also you don't feel anything, you don't hear anything, you don't see anything. You're just sort of trapped with your own thoughts for all eternity because you have banished yourself from what is. So you have essentially separated yourself from existence, but you still have to exist because you have an eternal soul. That's one way of looking at it, but there are a lot more ways, and I'm going to go over it more in depth in that other video. But for now, that's going to be my answer to this guy's question. Hell isn't what you think it is. And people aren't getting tossed in there just because God didn't like them when he created them. God is infinite in mercy, and there's a chance for everybody. But we should try to maximize that chance as much as possible because that's what Jesus told us to do right before he went to heaven.